Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining. My name is Andrea, and I'm a current student at Purdue. I'm representing the Purdue Engineering Student Council and STEM Power at this conference. And I am super excited to announce and introduce our keynote speaker tonight, Janae Jagoda. She graduated from Purdue in 2015 with a civil engineering degree and minors in Spanish, global engineering, and aerospace studies. While at Purdue, Janae was incredibly active on campus with involvement in the Air Force ROTC, the Purdue Engineering Student Council, the Women in Engineering Program, the Purdue Foundation Student Board, the Navigators, the University Honors Program, and Mortarboard National College Senior Honor Society. She also studied abroad in Italy, Australia, England, and France. Upon graduation, Janae commissioned into the United States Air Force. She recently completed her master's degree at the U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology and is currently stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. Thank you, Janae, so much for joining us. And with that, I will let you take it away.
All right, well, thank you. Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks, Andrea, for that introduction, and thank you to both the Purdue Student Government and the Purdue Engineering Student Council for inviting me to be a keynote speaker at this year's conference. I'm passionate about student organizations and extracurricular involvement because so many of my best college memories and my most profound life lessons learned stemmed from my involvement in these organizations. I've really enjoyed the process of revisiting all these old memories and photos to prepare for this talk tonight, and I'm really excited to share them with you over the next 30 or 45 minutes. Now, before I begin, I have to admit that when I was first asked to be a speaker, I was a little bit hesitant to say yes. While I love student leadership, and I've been very fortunate to have had opportunities to lead both while I was at Purdue and in my career after college, I am by no means a leadership expert. So I kind of worried if I would have enough content to fill a talk at a leadership conference. And then a few days ago, I made the mistake of scrolling through the conference app and seeing the credentials of all these other really impressive speakers that PSG and PESC have lined up. And it kind of affirmed my doubts of what do I have to add to these professionals. So I've decided to take a little bit of a different approach to this session. Looking over the conference agenda, I can tell that you have so many awesome opportunities this week to learn to be effective leaders. So instead of me adding to your training and equipping, I'd like to actually focus on encouraging you that pouring your time, effort, and passion into your respective student organizations absolutely does pay off, both during your time at Purdue, which hopefully you're experiencing already, but also in the long term, which in my case is 5 years, since that's how long it's been since I've graduated. Now, in my opinion, time is a college student's greatest resource. I have never had as much control over my schedule and how I spend my time as I did during my 4 years at Purdue. Because not only do you control your class schedule during the day, but you also have complete control over how you spend your time outside of class, whether that be doing classwork, working a part-time job, hanging out with friends, or becoming active in a student org. But with over 1,000 student organizations at Purdue, and there were only 850 when I was there, so I can't even imagine how much harder the decision is for all of you. But with that many organizations, deciding how and where to invest your time can be really challenging. When I was at Purdue, there just simply was not enough time for me to do everything that I wanted to do. So I had to make some pretty tough choices during my 4 years about which activities I wanted to pursue and which I needed to drop. While I probably joined about 15 different organizations for some period of time during my 4 years at Purdue, ultimately I chose to focus on the 5 organizations that challenged, stretched, and grew me the most. Each of these 5 have provided me with long-term personal, professional, and relational benefits, as I'll share over the course of this talk. So for those of you who are wrestling with how to best invest your time during your college years, I would encourage you to evaluate your organizational involvement in the long term. Are you developing skills and experiences now that you can carry with you into your career after college? Now, I'm a big fan of mnemonic devices, so I actually put together an acronym to highlight some of the benefits, both short and long term, of investing time in student organizations. These benefits were derived from a combination of research and personal experience, and then tailored to fit this particular acronym. So, without further ado, here are 6 benefits of investing in student organizations: individual discovery, networking, versatility, experience, skill development, and transformation. I'll spend a few minutes talking through each benefit, as well as sharing some personal examples. So let's start with the I, individual discovery. It's only natural that as you're exposed to different people, activities, environments, and ways of thinking, that you're going to learn more about yourself, your passions and priorities, your interests, likes and dislikes, strengths and weaknesses, and your motivations. You'll carry this knowledge and self-awareness into your career and your everyday life. Several of my moments of individual discovery actually stem from organizations that I ended up not joining, or maybe joining but not sticking with. While none of these organizations were bad organizations, for a variety of reasons, they just weren't the right fit for me. But fortunately, we can still learn from our mistakes. So allow me to give a couple of examples. Within the Air Force ROTC program, there are several auxiliary organizations that cadets can join. I initially dabbled with the drill team, thinking that my experience in high school marching band and color guard would make me a natural fit for the team. But as it turns out, spinning and tossing wooden rifles is very different than spinning and tossing military rifles. Now, at first, I was disappointed in myself for not picking up the drill concepts more quickly, and just for not enjoying military drill as much as I thought I would. I felt like I was a quitter if I gave up on the organization. But I learned that our interests and our priorities change in different phases of life, and that's okay. I could still be a good cadet without being the captain of the drill team. And by allowing myself the freedom to change my mind, I could make time to pursue the things that I was more passionate about, rather than feeling obligated to stick with something just because I'd done it for years. Another example. As a freshman, I was invited to be a part of a leadership development program. But just because this program didn't end up being a good fit for me and didn't necessarily pique my interest, didn't mean that it wasn't a solid program. I remained active in it for my entire freshman year because I'd made a commitment at the start of the year. But as I said before, I just wasn't really passionate about what I was learning. I think at the time, I was too immature to appreciate the many nuances of leadership that were being covered in the course, or to really make an effort to connect with and befriend my peers in the program. At the end of the year, I was surprised when I was actually invited to return to the program as a sophomore mentor. The position came with a small scholarship and was probably expected to be an easy yes. But in that moment, I had to decide, how much did I value my time versus the financial incentive and the prestige of the position? Could I really mentor and encourage new freshmen in a program that I didn't feel passionate about? In the end, I made the tough decision to respectfully decline the position. And that's a lesson that I have definitely carried with me after college. While salary and benefits are certainly important and a big part of your decision-making as you're choosing your career post-graduation, the highest paying job isn't always the best job for you, because you can't put a price tag on job satisfaction. I'll share some more examples of individual discovery and lessons learned in the next 5 benefits of the INVEST acronym. But before I move on, I'd like to just briefly touch on study abroad, since Andrea mentioned it in my introduction. I've noticed that there tends to be a positive correlation between students who are involved on campus and students who choose to study abroad, because both are such great ways to get the most out of your college experience. So I think this is a relevant audience for what I want to share. I was fortunate to be able to study abroad actually 5 times. I said 4 in the intro, but 5 times while I was at Purdue. Because of my ROTC commitments, I opted for short-term study abroad programs, such as spring break or Maymester programs versus the traditional semester abroad. But even those short periods of time were very formative for me during college. My first study abroad trip was a 10-day trip to Costa Rica a few weeks before the start of my freshman year. and you can see that in the top left photo on the slide. I joined that program under the assumption that it would be like a lot of the student trips I took during high school, highly chaperoned and very structured. So I was surprised by how much the program leader empowered us to explore independently in small groups and to really experience the country and culture for ourselves, not just within the prescribed curriculum. That trip instilled me with curiosity and confidence in my travels, and is a big reason why I continue to study abroad throughout my time at Purdue. With each subsequent study abroad program, I gained more and more confidence, as well as a love of travel. I pushed myself by taking classes outside of the College of Engineering for a couple of the programs, and I also looked for ways to take a more active role in study abroad. For example, when I traveled to England during the Maymester of my junior year for a transportation course, I was actually able to help develop the route that we used to sail narrowboats around the English Canal system, and that you can see in the bottom right photo. Collectively, these experiences helped prepare me to live abroad as part of the Air Force during my 2-year assignment to RAF Mildenhall, England, and to continue to travel and experience the world after college. A second key benefit of involvement in student organizations is networking. Student organizations provide both the environment as well as the common ground for successful networking, especially when that organization has a professional or an alumni focus. They provide a safe, low-threat place to practice networking, as well as the opportunity to both establish and maintain valuable connections that can serve you during your time at Purdue and beyond college. My involvement in student organizations has opened so many doors for me, and I attribute a lot of that to the value of networking. At the end of my freshman year, I was selected to be a part of the Purdue Foundation Student Board, or PFSB. PFSB members serve as ambassadors to the University Development Office by hosting alumni and donors at Purdue events and by promoting student-run philanthropic initiatives. These events may include football brunches and tailgates, President's Council annual weekends, and college-specific events, among others. As a PFSB member, my role included hosting alumni, emceeing events, and trying to create the best possible Purdue experience for these committed philanthropists and alumni. During my sophomore year, I was one of 4 students asked to represent the Purdue Foundation Student Board at the President's Council Naples weekend in Florida. And you can see a picture of us, it's the one in the upper left. During that weekend, I had the opportunity to meet and mingle with numerous alumni while hosting back-to-class sessions, the Engineering Alumni Breakfast, and the President's Council Appreciation Dinner. My role as an MC involved introducing myself to include my major and involvement at Purdue before launching into the program for that particular event. Over the course of the weekend, I received numerous business cards from fellow civil engineers or alumni who shared a common extracurricular involvement with me during my time at Purdue. One of those business cards belonged to a man named Bill Dudley. At the time, Mr. Dudley worked as the president and chief operating officer of Bechtel Corporation, an international engineering, procurement, construction, and project management company. He received his bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Purdue and told me to reach out to him if I was ever interested in a job with Bechtel. Fast forward about 7 months to Industrial Roundtable. I emailed Mr. Dudley a few days prior to the career fair and let him know that I was interested in applying for a job with Bechtel, and I was planning to talk to the company representatives when I met them at IR. When I introduced myself at their booth, they already knew my name and my connection to Mr. Dudley. As an added bonus, I was wearing my PESC polo and name tag both days of IR, so they made the connection that I was a part of the organization that had put on the career fair. Thanks in large part to the networking and reputation that I established through both PFSB and PESC, I was given an interview and subsequently offered a summer internship with Bechtel in Reston, Virginia. And you can see one of the photos from my internship in that upper right corner. I had an amazing summer learning all about what civil engineering in action really looks like, and how different it is from just classroom civil engineering. And I even received a full-time job offer at the end of that summer. Although I had to turn the offer down due to my Air Force commitments, My time at Bechtel gave me a picture of what civil engineering is like in the civilian world that I can compare to what I'm experiencing in the military every day. And I believe that this experience will be invaluable in the future when I'm no longer in the Air Force. I'd like to share just one more quick example of networking in action. Each year, one of Purdue's home football games is designated as a Military Appreciation Day. On that day, the President's Council pre-game brunch is typically focused on honoring our military members and our veterans. As an ROTC cadet and PFSB member, I was given the opportunity to MC that brunch and introduce the guest speaker, Lieutenant General C.D. Moore, and his photo is in that bottom right corner. As a cadet, having the opportunity to both meet and personally interact with a 3-star general is pretty surreal, and it's a connection that I never would have made without the help of student organizations. It's also helped prepare me to meet and interact with high-ranking military officers throughout my Air Force career. Yet another benefit of student organizations is versatility. As you become involved in multiple student organizations and serve in a variety of different positions, you'll become a more versatile leader. You gain skills and experience that equip you to fulfill a variety of functions in subsequent jobs and employment. The greater the variety of organizations that you're a part of, for example, professional, academic, athletic, and social, and the more that you stretch yourself to hold different roles and different responsibilities in those organizations, the more multifaceted you will become. One organization that really contributed to my versatility as a leader was the Purdue Engineering Student Council, or PESC. I was a member of PESC for 3 years, and each year I served on a different committee. My freshman year, I joined the Communications Committee. Our committee was responsible for both internal and external communications, such as advertising our events on campus and in the local community, providing regular updates to our alumni, photographing our professional and social activities, and maintaining our website and social media. My time on the Communications Committee provided me with an intro to marketing and also taught me to leverage the many resources and information channels at Purdue. The next year, I was placed on the Student Activities Committee. Our committee planned a variety of events across campus designed to connect, encourage, and reinvigorate engineering students. I had the opportunity to spearhead the annual student-faculty picnic during my spring semester and was given the freedom and budget to run with a brand new idea, an engineering carnival, in the fall. This exposure to event planning and management taught me to develop and enforce a planning timeline, manage event logistics such as food, giveaways, and rented items, and coordinate a team of volunteers, each with designated tasks and shifts. During my final year in PESC, I was selected to be the Engineering Relations Committee head. My committee's highlights included establishing a brand new informational fair called A Taste of Engineering, geared at helping freshmen choose their major, sponsoring Engineers Week, hosting an engineering seminar series, promoting student-faculty relationships through a periodic Dinner with the Dean event, and organizing a food drive for the local community. Additionally, we planned the PESC Alumni Tailgate for homecoming, bolstered our alumni relations program, and managed the PESC Merit Fund, a pot of money used to support the outreach, competition, and research of several very deserving engineering organizations on campus. Through my capacity as a committee head, I learned to manage a team of people executing a variety of diverse projects, to develop and maintain a budget, conduct good interviews, and liaise between my committee and PESC leadership. In addition to serving on a different committee each year, all PESC members are also expected to support other committees' events. So every semester, I gained career fair experience by manning both Industrial Roundtable and Expo. I also volunteered with Engineering Outreach, learning how to make engineering fun and accessible for elementary and middle school students. This versatility has been key to my military career because since commissioning in the Air Force 5 years ago, I've lived in 3 different states and 1 foreign country, spent 18 months in grad school, and held 4 different jobs. Air Force officers' development focuses on breadth, not on depth, so that we have the range of experiences that we need to successfully command a unit in the future. So as a result, we're often placed into new jobs and expected to both learn and adapt quickly. Thanks to my time on PESC and in other student organizations, I was prepared to be pushed outside of my comfort zone and to respond to the many demands that the military places on me. Many student organizations serve as a great venue to apply classroom experience and learning in a safe, non-threatening environment. In addition to developing soft skills, these organizations cultivate technical skills that often translate directly into your job. For example, engineering a concrete canoe, managing a small business enterprise, or developing mini lesson plans to tutor elementary students after school. As a cadet in Air Force ROTC, I had the unique experience of being part of a 4-year program specifically designed to prepare me for a future career in the Air Force. The Air Force ROTC program consists of 4 primary components: classroom instruction, physical training, leadership laboratory, and field training. Upon successful completion of the program and receipt of a bachelor's degree, cadets commission as second lieutenants into the world's greatest Air Force and serve a minimum of 4 years on active duty. Each aspect of ROTC is designed to develop leadership and officership qualities and give us experience that'll help us on active duty. Our classroom instruction covers topics such as organizational structure and mission, Air Force history, principles of leadership, and national security. We practice writing and briefing in accordance with military communication guidelines. In our weekly physical training sessions, we work out together as flights to build general fitness and prepare for the Air Force Physical Fitness Assessment, which is an annual requirement on active duty. And Leadership Laboratory is exactly what it sounds like, a chance to put leadership principles into practice. As a freshman and sophomore, Leadership Laboratory is focused on learning military basics such as customs and courtesies, drill and ceremonies, and field training preparation. As a junior and senior, Leadership Laboratory focuses on training and leading younger cadets. Lead Lab is entirely cadet run, with upperclassmen responsible for training underclassmen, planning military events, and keeping the cadet wing running smoothly. Between their sophomore and junior years, cadets attend field training, 4 weeks of intensive military training and evaluation in a very high pressure, high stress environment. Field training includes an evaluation of everything cadets have learned in their first 2 years in ROTC, as well as 2 weeks of simulated deployment, where they're gaining actual military and combat skills that they might not learn otherwise. In ROTC, the cadet wing is designed to mirror an actual Air Force wing as closely as possible. At most bases, a wing is the highest level of organization. For example, at my current duty station, Ellsworth Air Force Base, we're home to the 28th Bomb Wing, and the highest ranking officer on the base is the wing commander. Cadets rotate through different positions each semester to provide a variety of experiences that parallel the real Air Force. One semester, I served as a flight commander, and as a flight commander, I was responsible for the training and overall well-being of 10 underclassmen. And the photo on the upper left is my flight, Charlie flight. In the Air Force, leadership is personal, and quite frankly, it's intrusive. If my flight members were struggling with their transition to college, if they were failing classes, or just wrestling through a personal issue, it was my job to be aware of that and to counsel them through it. And while very challenging and at times a little bit uncomfortable, this has prepared me well for my current role as a deputy flight commander. As a deputy flight commander, I oversee 18 military members and 23 civilians. And again, it's crucial that I know my people personally and that I'm involved in their lives. Because if a personal problem goes unrecognized, it can eventually affect the greater Air Force mission. Another semester, I was responsible for planning Dining Out, which is an annual event that carries a lot of military tradition. Planning Dining Out allowed me to immerse myself in both that military tradition as well as protocol, to gain experience interacting directly with military officers in order to understand and execute their intent, and to practice my delegation skills. These skills have carried over well to planning military ceremonies and distinguished visitor visits, which I've had to do several times since joining the Air Force. Without question, my experience in Air Force ROTC set the tone for my entry into the Air Force. And whether I realize it or not, I'm drawing on the lessons learned and experience gained in ROTC on a daily basis in active duty. So I would encourage each of you to invest in a student organization that affords you the same level of relevant career experience and preparation. Let's move on to skill development. Student organizations are the perfect place to develop soft skills, such as time management, teamwork, creative thinking, problem solving, conflict resolution, and communication, to name just a few. Nearly every job requires employees to engage with others in some way, so soft skills are highly desirable. Additionally, they're transferable and will stick with you even if you choose to change career paths down the line. While every student organization that I was involved in contributed to my skill development, I'd like to focus on my time as a leadership team member for the Women in Engineering Pair Mentors and Mentees program for this particular example. This role was unique because it enabled me to be a part of a student organization, but it actually also provided me with a part-time job on the leadership team. Honestly, I enjoyed the role so much that I would have done it even without pay, but earning that small salary was definitely an added bonus. Now, the Mentors and Mentees, also referred to as M&M, leadership team is comprised of 6 members. Our role was to plan the monthly meetings for the M&M program, to foster strong, mutually beneficial relationships between mentors and mentees, and to equip female engineers for success in a male-dominated major and career path. Each month, we shared responsibility at meetings by rotating through several different tasks, including managing meeting attendance, ordering food, arranging a speaker, facilitating the meeting, planning icebreaker activities, and gathering survey data and feedback to improve future meetings. Because everybody had a stake in the meeting, teamwork was imperative, and we learned to trust and rely on each other to have a successful meeting. As I work my way through the ranks in the Air Force, trusting and depending on others is becoming increasingly important because there's simply not enough time in the day to accomplish everything that needs to get done by myself. I have to rely on my team in order to be successful. As a leadership team member, I also developed better time management skills. Because I knew that I'd have to report my time on my bi-weekly time card, I became very conscious of how much time I was spending on a given task versus how much time that task should require. I also found that I was procrastinating less and accomplishing more because I was accountable to others with my time. Another skill I gained while on the leadership team was communication. Depending on my role each month, I might have to communicate with the speaker to ensure they understood our expectations and were prepared to give their presentation, to reach out to my assigned mentors and mentees to find out how things were going for them, or to present data and feedback about our monthly meetings to the Women in Engineering program staff. I'll let the clock go. I guess it's just one. Communication at all levels is crucial in almost any job, and my time on the leadership team taught me how to communicate efficiently and effectively. Finally, our program advisors provided us the opportunity to complete personality assessments such as the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, StrengthsFinder, and True Colors, which helped us to better understand ourselves, each other, and how to work together as a team. When you understand kind of the science behind a person's personality and why they do what they do, it makes it a lot easier to work with them and just be successful in a team and cooperative environment. We were also given a budget for a monthly team building event, which ranged from pumpkin carving to the Purdue Low Ropes course, and pretty much everything in between. Through these activities, we learned and practiced conflict resolution, creative thinking, and problem solving, honing our soft skills the entire time. And as an engineer and officer, so much of my job revolves around factors such as problem solving, communication, and time management. So I can't stress enough how much these skills will benefit you in your life after college. The final benefit of involvement in student organizations that I'd like to highlight is personal transformation. We are all shaped by our environment, relationships, and circumstances. When you choose to place yourself in an organization that stretches and challenges you, surrounded by people who encourage and inspire you, you will change for the better. One of the first organizations I joined when I arrived at Purdue is the Navigators. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Navigators, or NAVs for short, it's a Christian ministry with the mission to know Christ, make him known, and help others do the same. Growing up, I attended church with my parents, but never truly claimed my faith as my own. However, the summer before my freshman year of college, I knew that I wanted that to change, and I wanted to be involved with a campus ministry. I visited 2 different campus ministries during my first couple weeks on campus, but I ultimately chose NAVS because of its smaller, more intimate size, and how that made it so much easier for me to get connected with other students. One of the first aspects of personal transformation that I experienced was an increase in self-discipline. One of the core elements of the NAVS ministry at Purdue is NAV Night, which is a weekly night of worship, fellowship, and teaching. Being surrounded by like-minded people who also wanted to live out their faith provided me with some much-needed accountability in my personal spiritual habits. It also led to me joining a Bible study the second semester of my freshman year, which is something I continued in my remaining time at Purdue. Another aspect of personal transformation occurred through mentorship. Halfway through my first semester at Purdue, I was connected to a Navigator staff member named Margot. Margot and her husband Glenn had just transferred to Purdue from the Air Force Academy, so they understood the life, the schedule, and the struggles of a military cadet. Margot and I met for the first time that November and committed to meeting together on a weekly basis. And for the next 3.5 years, Margot mentored me on living out my faith, managing my time, maintaining healthy relationships, and pretty much any other topic that happened to kind of come up in our conversations. Since graduation, Margot and I have maintained our friendship. I stay with her and Glenn every time I come back to campus. We text and call periodically, and I receive her ministry updates. Margot and Glenn played such an influential role in my life that when my husband and I got married, we asked Glenn to officiate our ceremony and Margot to deliver one of our readings. Now, perhaps the most transformative aspect of my involvement in NAVS came from attending the Regional Navigators Summer Training Program, the summers following my sophomore and senior years of college. The Summer Training Program, or STP, is a 3-week intensive Bible study, discipleship, and service program. College students from across Indiana and Illinois gather to volunteer at a Christian summer camp, engage in small group Bible study and large group training and equipping sessions, experience true fellowship, and practice evangelism. During those 3 weeks, participants voluntarily give up technology so they can focus on God and each other during their time together. Now, the first time I attended STP, I was a regular participant. And during those 3 weeks, everything that I'd spent the previous 2 years studying with the Purdue NAVS finally clicked for me. I saw the necessity of spiritual discipline and desired a relationship with God in new ways. And that summer, I also got to know another student from Purdue named Ari better. She ended up becoming one of my closest friends in my remaining 2 years on campus and one of my bridesmaids. And you can see her in the picture in the upper left. Immediately after graduation, I returned to STP as a team leader. This time, I led a team of 3 women through our daily Bible study and volunteer service. And I also had the privilege of meeting with them individually on a weekly basis to get to know them on a deeper level and offer mentorship. I learned so much about servant leadership and fellowship during those 3 weeks, and I truly consider it to be a transformative experience in my life. Those women, Elena, Andrea, and Maddie, are also some of my best friends, and they stood by me at my wedding as well. Since STP 5 years ago, we've rendezvoused in California, Portugal, Ohio, and Indiana to catch up with one another. And we actually have a conversation scheduled later this evening to catch up as well, just to kind of show how much our friendship has meant to us in the long term. So while I recognize that not everybody will leave Purdue with a faith-based transformative experience, by dedicating yourself to a cause or an organization that you're passionate about and allowing yourself to grow and learn through the process, you will experience personal transformation that will benefit you long after you graduate. All right, that was a lot of examples and a lot of personal stories. So thanks for bearing with me as I shared some of the ways that my involvement at Purdue has continued to benefit me in my life after college. While the INVEST acronym certainly provides a good idea of some of the benefits of student organizations, it is by no means all-inclusive. Involvement in student orgs also helps bolster your resume, expose you to greater diversity of thought, culture, and background, give back to your school and your community, develop maturity, have fun, make lifelong memories, and so many other benefits. As I was preparing for this talk, I came across a master's thesis entitled The Impact of Student Organizations on the Development of Core Competencies. And one of the findings from that research was, and I quote, "The more students participate in student organizations, the more they are likely to improve essential abilities that will be useful in the real-world setting." That's pretty impactful. So before we transition to an opportunity to ask questions or discuss whatever's on your mind, I'd like to thank each of you for investing your time, your effort, and your energy into Purdue student organizations. I know from personal experience that this university is better for it. I hope that you're already receiving dividends on that investment and that you'll be enjoying the long-term payoff in the future. Boiler up.
Thank you so much for sharing, Janae. We'll open it up to Q&A now, so you can either turn on your video to ask or throw some questions in the chat. And just to read what's been in the chat, at the very beginning, Hannah said, "We are so happy to have you." Jacob Logan said, "I love acronyms for habits." So for the INVEST acronym, and we loved all of your pictures. And again, thank you for giving that talk. So I'm going to start off with a question of my own. But at the beginning, you talked about like time management and choosing the organizations that were best for you. Have you experienced those type of decisions after college? Like, I guess in terms of where you're going to invest your time, and if you did, how did you make those decisions then?
Yeah, so I would say yes, those decisions certainly don't go away after college. They look different. So for me, most of the times where I'm trying to decide how to invest my time, if I have my time for something, is career related. So in the Air Force, you have kind of your standard job expectations and day-to-day duties, but there are so many additional duties and opportunities that pop up, like maybe being a project officer for a special event on base, planning this itinerary for a distinguished visitor, maybe managing a small program or handling training for your unit. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And definitely there's certainly a part of me that just wants to say yes to all of those opportunities because they're good opportunities. They're giving you good exposure and good experience. But it's not always practical. I can't say yes to everything and give it my best. I also can't, I guess, in good conscience, take away those opportunities from other very deserving officers and airmen. So usually first of all, I'll talk to leadership about it because, I mean, mentorship is important. That doesn't go away after college. And I'll kind of get their opinion on, do they think this is a worthwhile opportunity? Do they think that this would stretch me? And is it something that they would recommend investing my time in? I'll talk to people who have maybe held a similar position or responsibility before and kind of get their sense as well. And then I'll just try and kind of really assess, am I doing this just for kind of the prestige of being able to put one more thing on my resume and claim one more thing as my own? Or am I doing it because I feel passionate about what that event or program, or whatever it might be, is, and because I think I can honestly make it better? So yes, definitely time management is still a big thing after college. It just looks a little bit different. But hopefully that answered your question, Andrea.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And then also, someone threw a question into the chat. Hannah's asking, can you tell us a little bit about your job and responsibilities in the Air Force?
Yeah, so I'll I mentioned that I've actually held 4 different jobs, so basically a job a year plus grad school. So I'll kind of touch briefly on each of those because my career has kind of looked different every year. So when I first commissioned in the Air Force, I actually did a 1-year stint as a recruiting officer. That's not normal. I applied for that specifically. I kind of found that I'd gotten a little bit burnt out of civil engineering after 4 years of studying it, and I wanted sort of a gap year before I went into being a civil engineering officer. So I applied to recruit. I was assigned to UCLA, which is not a bad place for a first assignment, and not a bad way to transition from being a college student to being an active duty officer, because I kind of got the best of both worlds being stationed on a college campus. But while I was there, I had about a 250-mile radius around LA, and I was responsible for basically getting the word out about the ROTC program to high school students and teaching them how to apply for scholarships, how to join as walk-ons, and basically how to pursue a career in the military. So that was my first year. My second year, I moved to RAF Mildenhall, England, and I was the Chief of Requirements and Optimization when I was there. Honestly, I had that title, but as a brand new second lieutenant, they kind of just threw me into a bunch of different opportunities, which I'm really grateful for. So technically, my position was responsible for managing all of the customer service and work requests that come into civil engineering, because we're responsible for the maintenance of all the facilities on base. I also handled things like service contracts and just some kind of the odds and ends that didn't necessarily fit into another area of civil engineering, but were really important. But in addition to working with that, I got to help with a DV visit. I think I executed a Legionella training, which I'd never heard of. It's a waterborne illness for the entire base, because that's something that the UK takes super seriously. So just kind of a little bit of everything in that position. After about a year there, I got moved up to the group level. So I kind of described wing as usually the highest level on a base. There's 3 to 4 groups that fall right below it, and then squadrons are below that. So I had been working in the CE squadron. I bumped up to the mission support group, and I actually got to be the executive officer for the group commander, who's a full bird colonel. And so in that capacity, I was kind of just an assistant and sort of a right-hand man to the group commander. So anything that he had to sign or approve or consider for decision went through me first. I would vet it, make sure, try and anticipate my boss's questions and concerns before it went up to him, and then actually kind of present it and process that. So a lot of kind of managing his schedule and just understanding how he thought and how I could best support him as a leader. And that was a really fun position and just a really good way to gain more of a senior leader perspective versus what I was seeing kind of at the ground level in the squadron. After that, I went to grad school for 18 months. And then currently my position, I mentioned I'm the Deputy Engineering Flight Commander. So within civil engineering, we're responsible for the maintenance of the entire base and all its facilities. Typically, we accomplish that in-house because we have a team of plumbers, HVAC technicians, electricians, power production technicians, structural guys, pavements guys, pretty much the whole gamut, all falls in CE. But anytime that we can't accomplish that in-house, those larger projects come to my flight, the engineering flight, for execution. So we actually develop the contract documents, get with the customer to determine their requirements, and basically kind of see a project from conception to actual execution and fruition. So we manage and inspect it along the way. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. We're getting ready. So Ellsworth Air Force Base, for those of you who are aircraft fans, has been chosen to bed down the new B-21 aircraft. I'm not sure the exact timeline. It's kind of one of those things that gets pushed back. So I'm not sure how many years out we're at right now. But we're currently preparing a lot of new construction and just kind of revamping, refurbishing existing facilities to accommodate the new aircraft and the new mission. So it's keeping my flight really busy. So hopefully that kind of answered the questions about what my careers looked like and what I do.
Then we have another question in the chat from Benita. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly. I apologize. If I'm not. First, she said that she loved the content. and that she wishes that she could also be more involved and keep getting involved in student orgs. But her question is, she is curious on how one can find who will be coming as a representative at a career fair.
Oh, that's a good question. I'll probably defer to you on that one, Andrea, since you're on PESC and probably involved in IR. Yeah, I'll let you take that if you don't want.
Okay. Honestly, even planning the fair, we really don't know exactly who is going to be coming. Sometimes it varies between companies. So some companies have dedicated recruiters, where that is like their job, where they go around to all these career fairs and like do a bunch of LinkedIn stuff. And other times it's kind of like the general employee at the company. So like the role that you would be going into, they're interviewing you in that role. So for example, if you're interviewing for a role in, or want to go for a role in research and development, a scientist like could be at the career fair recruiting and like kind of meeting everyone and talking to them. So it really just depends on the company. Some companies will also have recruiting events before the career fair, which you should get emails from the CCO about those, so you can network with them as well. And then Janae, I don't know if you know how like the Air Force or military does it. I'm not aware of that either.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in the Air Force, I would go over to the Air Force ROTC detachment. It's in the Armory. You can't miss it. Pretty central on campus. Air Force ROTC is up the stairs. It's kind of when you get to the top of the stairs, hang a right, wrap around, and you'll see the main office. But just talk to them. I mean, they're looking for qualified, motivated students to become a part of the ROTC program. And my guess is if you're attending a conference like this of your own volition, you're probably that qualified and motivated student they're looking for. So you can just show up there, and some of the officers will kind of get you set up, talk you through the curriculum, and help you understand if that's the right choice for you. And the same thing for the other branches too. Obviously, I'm a little biased for the Air Force, but you can find the Army, the Navy, and the Marines in the Armory as well. And I know that they'd be happy to kind of bring on some new recruits too.
Great. Okay, that was the last question in the chat. So if someone wants to chime in, go for it.
Hi, Janae. This is Asada.
Hi, Asada.
Wondering, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Like Hannah said, your pictures, everything was just so sweet. You seem incredible. But, if there's anything that you could go back and maybe not necessarily redo, but change, is there something from your college experience?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and something I've kind of thought about a little bit. So one of my biggest, I don't know if regret is the right word, but just something I would change or try harder to fit in. I regret that I never joined Old Masters when I was on campus. I almost did my senior year, but I think at the time they were meeting on Tuesday evenings, and I already had, no kidding, 2 or 3 organizations that were meeting on Tuesdays, and I just could not spread my time more thinly than I already was. So in that case, I guess kind of going back to the time management question from earlier, I just chose to honor my previous commitments and kind of say no to Old Masters. But if there was any way I could have done it, that was something I would have really loved. I think my only other kind of thing I would change, there was one semester, it was the semester that I was planning dining out. So I talked about that kind of military protocol, formal event that I planned. And my GPA took a hit that semester. I loved what I was doing. I mean, I had so much fun planning the event. We made it World War II themed, so I brought in a live band to play kind of big band music. We had some actual World War II era artifacts on display that people could walk through. I mean, it was a ton of fun, and I'm so happy I had the opportunity to plan it. But I do regret that I think I almost used my love of that event, coupled with the fact that I didn't necessarily love 1 or 2 of the classes I was taking that semester, as an excuse to focus more on the event. And just that one semester, I think I did not meet my potential in regards to classes. So, and another kind of testament to time management. That was maybe an example where I did not manage my time in the best way. I had a good time doing it, but that isn't always the right answer. So other than that, though, I mean, I loved being at Purdue, and I look, and not to be cheesy, but I look back on it as kind of one of the fondest memories of my life. I've enjoyed every phase, but every now and then I kind of mourn the fact that I'm no longer in college and I can't go back to what I had during those 4 years. So no major regrets, but those are probably the two kind of top of my list that I would change if I could go back and do it again.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good question.
And actually, I had a friend text me a question. He had to leave a little bit early, but his was about networking, and he wanted to know if there's like a best way to practice networking. So if you just jump right in, or like, can you fail in networking? How do you go about that?
So I would argue, I don't think you can really fail in networking. So the way I see it, when you enter kind of a networking event or networking opportunity, you're entering that event or opportunity without any connections. So if you leave without any connections, you're no worse off than you've started, but you also hopefully learn from some of the mistakes and some of the, okay, this went well, this didn't. So I would say, no, I don't think you can fail. As far as kind of the best way to practice, I mean, a lot of different student organizations will offer kind of networking workshops or interview skill workshops. Those are kind of just some really low threat ways to kind of learn some basic skills. But otherwise, I hate to say it, but the best way to learn and to practice is just to get out there and do it. So I'd recommend, I mean, say for example, at career fairs, you certainly don't want to waste companies' time. So I'm not advocating just kind of taking advantage of company reps and talking to whoever for networking practice, but maybe start off with one or two companies that are kind of on your second tier, not necessarily the dream jobs, and get used to introducing yourself, have that little elevator pitch ready, and become prepared with resumes, with business cards, whatever the case might be, and just learn by doing. I wish that there were an easier way, but really that's the best way. Just kind of put yourself out there, get in that environment, and just get used to networking. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. So I will say, just while people are thinking, I know sometimes not everybody likes to ask questions in a more public forum. Right as we're kind of signing off, I'll share my screen one more time. That final slide had my personal email, my work email, and my personal cell phone number. So if you want to reach out, ask a question, maybe you felt like we had some common ground and just want to talk more about it, I would love that. So I will put that up right before we sign off. And if you don't want to ask right now, you can just stick around, screenshot that, and then talk to me later too. So. I'll go ahead and pop it up now, actually, while we're kind of in a lull, and that way you have it if you want it. So.
Do you have any advice in creating an elevator pitch?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, typically you're shooting for about 30 seconds, so certainly keep that in mind. So I guess I would think about kind of what makes you unique or what you want to highlight. So if there's an organization that you're really passionate about, if there's a leadership position that you currently hold that you think would impress your interviewer or that company rep, or maybe be really relevant to that job you're applying for, I would kind of brainstorm, here's what I had to work with, my current involvement, my leadership experience, my strengths, my weaknesses. You can use your resume as a starting point, and then just think, what are maybe the one or two things I want to highlight? My recommendation would be to not try and stick in too much, because if it's just a 30-second laundry list, that's not going to be memorable to the person that you're talking to. So again, those 1 to 2 bullet points that you can kind of flesh out and really have an impact, I think are great. And as much as possible, when you tailor your elevator pitch to what you're applying for or what you're pursuing, I think that'll really help as well. But otherwise, kind of like what I was saying before, just practice. You know, start off with maybe the second choice companies that you're interested in, but you wouldn't be brokenhearted if it didn't work out. And just kind of roll out your elevator pitch and just see how it goes over. And kind of refine it from there.
All right, if there are no more questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. But I just wanted to say one more time, thank you so much, Janae, for sharing all that and sharing all of your experiences. It's definitely nice to see that like there is a life after college, and that there are a lot of payoffs from all of the hard work that we're putting in now.
Well, thanks again for this opportunity, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. I know there's a lot of things you can do with your last few weeks this summer, so I appreciate you taking the time to be here and to grow yourselves as leaders. I think that says a lot about who you are and about what you care about. So thank you.
Thank you, Janae.
My pleasure.